Hey everyone, welcome to the Recruitment Show. We are talking about all of the major topics that people are discussing right now. Everything recruiting, future of work, and everything in between. I've got guests from all over the world to come and share their perspective and their thoughts and feelings and all of that stuff on these key topics. It might not be politically correct. It might not be what you want to hear, but it's people's perspectives, and it's important to hear people's perspectives. I love storytelling, and I think one story can illuminate a million more and really increase our understanding of these topics. So sit back, whether you're watching live or after, grab a drink, take a seat, and enjoy. I think we're good to go, right?
I reckon we're good to go.
Amazing. We've kind of started anyway.
Of course we do. You basically have like an hour extra of kind of outtakes from the conversation.
No, I love that, because we were chatting, but I think it was all recorded, which is really cool.
Yeah.
We'll do like an outtakes. Thanks for joining me again.
Oh, brother, it's always a pleasure.
It's great. We do it like every year now. It's like maybe our fourth. I think it's our fourth.
Yeah.
Because with the first one we did, you were just saying in the office, which was probably 2019.
Pre-COVID, yeah.
Wow. Crazy. So for this one, I thought we'd do a little review of the year, just like,
sounds great.
How's it gone? Then we've got a bunch of polls that we've done over the year, which are really interesting. And so we just kind of like chat through that, and then maybe just round up with a little like, what's in store?
Our predictions for 2024.
Optimistic, pessimistic, like what's the
cool,
vibe? Let's
roll with it.
Cool. How's the year been?
2023 has been a year of learnings, and I know that's kind of a often said thing, but for me personally and professionally, 2023 has been a big year of learnings. Because
you set up your business this year, right?
Last
year, end of last year.
Yeah, it was last year, and so it's kind of 18 months now, I think. I looked on LinkedIn earlier. It was 18 months. But it's I think the key thing is learning about people in a kind of business context. You know, when you're a kind of CEO of a company, as you well know, you never stop learning. But I think certainly 2023 for me has been very significant in that respect.
Yeah. The people aspect is crazy, isn't it? Because when you start on your own, I started on my own, completely on my own, and then you start having people wanting to join you, spend some of their lives with you, and then you feel, you move from I to we, which is quite a hard move. And then, you're the coach, mentor, developing, investing in others and stuff like that. The game changes a lot. Yeah.
There's been some really, really fun stuff in 2023 through kind of, building a team and kind of working collaboratively with them. But equally, there's been some, just some learnings around, how we think about kind of skills, experience, knowledge aligned to, projects, outcomes. So, as a kind of people professional in talent acquisition and recruitment, it sounds strange to say that I'm still learning about people, but I think it's a continuous journey. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah, 100%. What about like just the year as a whole? Like I think with a lot of TA folks, recruiters, consultants, talent advisors, whatever word you choose to label yourself with, I think it's been a really tough year. I think a year that most will want to forget.
Yeah.
There's been for me, like my word of the year, I was thinking about this, I've said it a few times, but it's been stodgy.
Yeah.
Some industries there's been a lot of redundancies, financial services, technology, loads of TA folks have been made redundant from a whole host of different firms. A lot of search consultancies have also made redundancies, and it's been tough for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of hurt and pain in the talent acquisition and recruitment community through 2023, and it doesn't matter whether you're agency side, whether you're in-house, whether you're a consultant, whatever it is, you're all part of that community. And I think so you've got the spectre of AI, which has invariably been a consistent narrative all the way through 2023, or coming into 2023 and for the majority of it. And I think there's almost, as well with that, there's this real conflict challenge between talent acquisition as a service or a partnership. And I think that's been super highlighted this year by the fact that I think companies have looked at it as a service, thus made decisions based on that service, and that's where we've seen
That's true.
a lot of the redundancies come from. They don't see they've seen it as a service that they require for a certain period of time, and anybody within that particular function, ultimately, if we don't need that service, and unfortunately we can't retain those individuals, I don't think it's been looked at as the real value add and business partner that it is. I mean, because it's ironic, isn't it, that probably in the top three things every year that leaders say are their biggest worry and biggest concern, and one thing they're going to lean into is hiring the best talent.
Yeah.
Yet in the same breath, they're very quick to scale up and scale down, or kind of get rid of the talent acquisition function that brings in that talent. I don't know, man.
No, it's true. And then you see it because it's cyclical. Because soon enough it changes, and I think even now you're starting to see a few more TA roles pop up.
Yeah.
And the game changes, but then you're asking the same people to then represent you in the market, tell your story, attract them. And also the other thing is, when the going gets tough, this particular firm just cut people. And you have these boomerang employees. I think I can't remember which company it was, Salesforce or somewhere, where they're trying to attract people back that they made redundant like 6 months ago. So I'm really sorry we weren't there for you, but it's kind of fine, come back, we made it. So that's also going to be quite interesting. Also that like kind of the scale up VC space that you're in, and like a lot of it was, come here and we, you can make $1 billion when we exit and all of this kind of stuff. And then funding dried up. They cut a lot of folks this last year, 18 months. And again, it's going to be interesting to see if those companies are going to have any issue attracting people back or attracting new people. Will people forget? Will they even care? Like, I think that would be...
That's a good question, man. I think back to your original question around kind of 2023, I think that kind of funding environment has genuinely fed into these kind of multiple things that have impacted talent acquisition and recruitment. So the funding environment, the spectre of kind of AI and what that means for kind of talent acquisition and recruitment, and then ultimately just the kind of economic environment that has actually then kind of impacted, I think, the UK economy, right? So we've seen these kind of mass redundancies. To your point, will these companies struggle to firstly retain the current talent that have seen people and their friends leave the business, and then can they actually attract talent back to their business? I think there's going to be a fundamental challenge for them, because people can research so much online now, right?
Yeah.
Regardless of how you spin the narrative, we didn't quite get the funding that we wanted. It was a little bit more of a challenging funding environment. Okay, cool. What did you do to steady the ship? Oh, well, we basically let 50% of our workforce go. That doesn't sound particularly attractive and reassuring to me.
Yeah. It's interesting, you're seeing a little backlash with ChatGPT, OpenAI. The board getting rid of the CEO. How many was it, Mira? 75% of the employees were like, 95% of the employees were like, well, we're out.
Yeah. There's two things to that, right? So that there's one, obviously, and you have been consistent in this message around how people are influenced by leaders in a business and how much impact that has on a business. But the one thing I kind of noticed today that maybe has gone on a little unnoticed. So they put the CTO as the interim CEO, didn't they?
Yes.
And she'd been in the business for quite a while. And then they very quickly replaced her with another white male, because we need another white male basically leading a tech company, right?
This was the founder of
Twitch.
That's it.
Yeah. So he'd basically taken time out, spent time with his family, which is fantastic, and then suddenly, he made some probably very quick decisions around kind of returning to work as the new CEO of OpenAI. But I kind of felt like, as soon as they sort of mentioned about kind of Sam Altman's kind of dismissal, removal, they appointed an interim CEO in Emira. I'm talking as if I know her on first name terms. But then within a few days, they'd appointed a CEO. And I was just kind of like, well, if she's good enough to promote into an interim CEO role, why do you feel the need to replace her so quickly?
And then Microsoft offered them jobs, right? Who are the major? I guess they're not the major. Are they the?
They're an influential investor, I think.
But are they the majority? If they're the majority shareholder, I need to check this out.
I don't know, but I know that in the statement that they mentioned around the appointment of the new CEO, they did make reference to the partnership with Microsoft and everything.
I mean,
on
they're
those
putting a lot
lines.
of money.
Yeah,
They're putting a lot of money. But I think that's an interesting one to end. Like, it's November, but it's just a really interesting scenario with this, because I think it'd be if the team, the 95% are like, we're going to walk, how much influence they'll have, and whether or not in a week or two we're going to see him back in the seat. And they'll and they'll, like the what's the gladiator thing, win the crowd and you'll win your freedom or something.
Yeah. I mean, I think obviously because of the global visibility of OpenAI and the multiple conversations that they're in a kind of business, economic, political level, the CEO position in that business, that entity is critical.
Moving on from him, I think for me one interesting thing of 2023 was X. Twitter, X, Elon. I mean, it would be amiss to not look back at 2023 and mention that, because I think it's super interesting, because he was like, because there was a whole conversation again this year has been about, it's followed on from the others, but flexible working, work from home, 5 days in the office, 5 days at home, whatever, just whole like kind of working vibe. And Elon's like, you want to come work at, well, it was Twitter at the time, right? Come work at Twitter. It's 5 days a week, 24/7. You like it, great. If you don't, go somewhere else. A lot of people left.
They're
called X now.
What
do you think of just that whole
dictatorship?
Could be.
It's kind of immediately what springs to mind. I mean, it's kind of like, yes, to transparency around how the business operates. So I suppose you can kind of credit him with being ultra transparent, but equally, kind of flexible working from home. That's the new norm, right? I mean, you can't mandate people being in the office 5 days a week now, because we all know that you can operate outside of having to be in the office. I mean, it's been proven.
No, I agree with you, but I think it was McKinsey. I think we found it a few months, like last month. There was a poll done, and like it was like 89% of CEOs. I'll try and find it and put it in the comments when we release this. That like 89% of CEOs said that they reckon people will be back in the office 5 days a week by 2026 or something. I don't believe that, but there is, for me, this 2023, just on that, I am seeing a little bit of a trend build of people wanting people back in. Like, I've got a few friends, they have to tap in. It's almost like the factory era. They have to tap in. Wow. My friend was in only 3 days. It's supposed to be in 4. He had like something going on, I don't know. And HR called him. Where were you? You're supposed to be in 4 days a week. You have to do an extra day in the office next week.
You're joking.
Yeah. Another friend, he cycles to work. Yeah. He's supposed to be in 4 days, and he was tapping around like the bike shed where he puts his bike in, and it wasn't being registered.
Okay. He
got an aggressive call from HR. Why aren't you coming in? Your contract stipulates you have to. Anyway.
Wow.
So there's a little bit of a trend I've seen building in 23, and maybe we can address it at the end, whether we think the team 24. But have you seen that?
I mean, I kind of my thought process around this is, the kind of dynamic and relationship between employer and employee has changed as a result of kind of COVID, and we've discovered a lot. As I said, working from home is possible. It doesn't impact output, doesn't impact productivity. It's about choice, and finding, offering choice and finding compromise against what the business needs and requires, and perhaps what that individual leader needs. So they may need a couple of days in person in the office with the team. And if the rationale behind that is sound and, everybody benefits from it, then great. But kind of mandating a period of time in office seems, I mean, that's one sure way of kind of making people make a choice about whether they want to stay in your business or not.
Yeah.
I mean, immediately I think to retention then, because people are going to be like, okay, well, this is not really something that I want to do, so I'm going to immediately go start looking elsewhere.
Yeah. Can you imagine being the manager that has to tell their team, you've got to be in 5 days a week from next month?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of feels like school. You know what I mean? The register, when you used to kind of go in and
you have to clock in, clock out.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly. Or to your point, that kind of Victorian kind of industrial era kind of warehouse mentality, where you're like, right, clock in, clock out. Those are your hours.
Yeah.
But again, it's kind of, you're focusing on the amount of time a person is in a space as opposed to the outputs and the value they're adding. You're putting almost equal priority on both, when in actual fact, for me as a kind of leader, it's the output that's valuable. It's the impact you're making.
Yeah.
That's the piece that's really valuable.
Yeah, and you have to be able to measure that. Like, what is a successful year look like for this person?
Yeah.
What do the output look? It doesn't matter, if they take 1 hour or 10 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, if it takes me 12 hours to do what they do in 1 hour, more for me.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
yeah. Well, it's just kind of, I'd always maintain that, if you can do what you need to do in a day, and you can do that really efficiently and very quickly, and you start, my co-founder, Diego, I mean, he starts at 5 o'clock in the morning. He's always been like that. So, imagine a scenario where you're sort of saying to him, well, you need to be in the office at 9 o'clock. He would have already done 4 hours work before he actually arrives, right? So what's he going to do from like 9 through, even if that rolls into sort of, he ends up finding work all the way through to 1 or 2 o'clock. He's got to have 4 hours to kill.
It's crazy.
What's he going to do?
He's on coffee 5 before you've even waken up.
Exactly. So it's kind of, it's understanding the rhythm and when people work best, and, when...
There is an actual thing about, I was reading Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. And it's a thing, night owls and what's the morning, whatever they call the morning people.
Like
anyway,
larks.
Larks, yeah, that's it, larks, yeah. So your circadian rhythm stuff, it's a thing. Like you are, so a lot of people say they're better in the morning, like your colleague, because they are.
Yeah.
Some love working late at night because that's when they're most productive. Yeah. And I think for creating a company and stuff, appreciating that different people work differently and better at different times is great, right?
Yeah, exactly that.
Just start at 10 and then finish later, or start at 5 a.m. and does it really matter? Unless you're doing a job where obviously you have to be.
Which is acknowledged, right? I mean, I mean, it's kind of almost like, there are jobs that require you to be on site.
Shift work or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and completely respect that. But I think in knowledge work, there should be that kind of flexibility. It makes common sense to me.
Yeah, no, for me too.
I think we're biased, really, aren't we? Because we're both of that school that we're just like, look, you be where you are to do your best work. As I'm seeing the value in the outputs, totally cool with me.
Yeah.
It's kind of almost like that servant leadership, right?
Yeah.
I can't imagine a world where we turn around and be like, right, 9 o'clock in the office, through till 5:30, half an hour lunch break, that sort of thing. That's
how it used to be.
Yeah.
15-minute breaks and an hour for lunch.
Yeah.
But then on the other side, let's just talk about like the employer. I mean, again, you have to do what's right for your company.
Yeah, for sure.
And I guess, if you feel like Elon, if you feel that for whatever reason this is the way, then again, for me, it's about communication, which is going to lead me on to my next kind of highlight, well, not highlight of the year, but as long as you communicate up front, I think what people don't like is when it gets changed on them. Is when you're in a firm, you're enjoying, you're doing really well, and suddenly like, right, you got to buy the season ticket again, and you got to do your 2-hour commute, and I want you in. Otherwise, go find it. That's harsh. If it's like, I'm hiring for this job, this is the deal, then you can decide whether it suits you or not.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's again, it comes down to transparency, right?
Yeah.
And transparency of communication all the way through this, and I'm sure we'll come onto it in terms of the kind of spectre of AI. But I think there's a lot of kind of fear mongering going on around, and a lot of kind of closed door meetings going on around what kind of AI. We're talking about artificial narrow intelligence here, right? And we're quite a way off from kind of AGI, right? But it's kind of almost like how we're thinking about that in terms of our business, and we need to be involving our team members and our employees in that conversation, because if they feel like they're not included in that conversation, there's no transparency around what that means for them, they're going to do what's right for them based on what they know. And if there's a lack of security or perceived security around their role, they're going to make a choice to leave.
Yeah, no, it's true. That's true. What do you think, just following on from that for the AI, one thing I've seen recently, I mean, really the last few months, or it's been around for a long time, but these transcription apps.
Yeah.
Like there's a bunch of them, MeetGeek, MetaView, a few others. So I guess for those who don't know, that you just transcribe video calls, phone calls. You can even do the video. You can press play on it and stuff. What are your thoughts on that? Have you seen it as a proper trend in the work that you guys do and companies?
I haven't. I think I still think that you get the early adopters. You get the individuals who are prepared to try and kind of utilize tech to enable better kind of human experiences and kind of greater efficiencies. and then you get the kind of majority or the late majority. So is everybody in talent acquisition and recruitment utilizing kind of AI tooling to some degree or another? But I don't think it's kind of widely adopted and consistently adopted. But that would be my impression.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk about it, that's for sure.
There is loads. Yeah, there's loads. I mean, the transcription stuff. I mean, LinkedIn Recruiter that every recruiter uses. I mean, that's got AI baked in.
Yeah.
Somewhere, like, find similar candidates to this one, and email sequencing and writing. I think they even have a little AI that they can write your outreach and.
It does come back. Well, yeah, I think I always think about your authentic voice, right? So if and I have noticed, certainly with kind of ChatGPT over the course of this year, that suddenly if you look back through people's LinkedIn feeds, on certain LinkedIn feeds, there is this inflection point where somebody has become super articulate very quickly, right? I mean, they've suddenly gone from like really quite scrappy LinkedIn posts to these long form narrative. I'm just like, the kind of correlation and timing of that just seems a little bit too kind of convenient, should we say?
I think also a telltale sign is when you look at the hashtags and there's capital letters.
Yeah.
It's like personal development. I mean, most people, you just like hashtag and you write the lowercase.
Yeah. And I'm all for it. And I think, you can utilize them to, kind of better grammar, great. And when you're thinking about, kind of other demographics, it can be really useful. But I think just utilizing it to just pump out content that genuinely doesn't have your authentic voice at the center of it, I'd be concerned about that, to be fair.
Yeah.
Because then when you get that person in front of you in a conversation, you have an expectation based on the content you've seen. And
you're like, hold on a sec. Is that what? I read something that but that is not you.
Yeah, I just want to know that somebody's really passionate about what they're kind of sharing with the world. And that it actually comes from a place of authenticity. Yeah, I mean, why not utilize ChatGPT and numerous other kind of AI tools to sharpen up some of the tone, maybe, sharpen up some of the language, but don't create a whole package of content that genuinely you've basically put ChatGPT, write something on blur, and you just got a whole kind of post, and you're just pinging that out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And if you're in England, change it to UK English and US English.
So the Z's and S's, right? That's a telltale sign as well.
Yeah. On it, from you mentioned conversation, you mentioned authenticity. So moving on to human skills, I think also a theme for this year for me is that AI is going to do AI stuff. I think for the individual, doubling down on your human stuff is going to be important, and conversational skills for me is so important, because being able to have a chat like this, right? I can't be like, oh my God, like, what do you think? Glenn just messaged me, like, how should I respond? Like, you're asking me a question, I'm answering you. I pick off something you said, like it's an art. I think. A real skill to develop. And I think linking that to like 2023, there's just like, if you think of like everything going on in the world, the wars, the all of this stuff, and then you've had themes of like, bring your authentic self to work. There's this hyper, like we're in a like hyper state of like, everyone's offended, and safe spaces at work to have conversations. All of this kind of stuff, right? I think it's interesting, and for me, all of it boils down to, if we're able to. There's a lot of people, most humans can't have a conversation with someone about something that they fundamentally disagree with without turning into an argument. Or for me trying to convince you that actually you should be thinking like what I'm thinking, you're wrong. And also through like life school, everything's about debating, like trying to convince you, argue. Everything going on, like you see at the moment, everyone's arguing with each other and stuff. So for me, like a big thing that from this year that I want to move forward into 24 is, part of conversation is listening, and you need to listen to understand, not to respond.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you listen to someone to understand them, then you can find some kind of common ground, whatever that is, in work, whatever, I think that's a really good thing to work on.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree. I think to your point, certainly in the business world, there is a lot of convincing as opposed to active listening. And it's driven by that hierarchy as well, right? I need to convince this group to deliver X. I need to convince them of my vision, as it were. So when you go into those kind of working group sessions, you've been in them before, right? Your working group sessions with a leader, and you kind of get the sense already that, well, what we're going to do is already predefined or decided. We're just here to basically agree that that's what we're going to do, as opposed to actually thinking about proper collaboration where we're aiming to really influence in a very different way and affect the work that we do and the outcomes. And that, to your point, comes really down to real communication, real active listening, and being comfortable with somebody having a kind of an opposing opinion or a different opinion or a different perspective, and not just going into that conversation thinking I need to convince them of my position.
No, you're right, because all the like project groups, boardroom tables, a lot of it is mostly whoever shouts loudest gets that, and then your point of view or your vision or strategy hasn't been taken forward, and you like storm out. And you like speaking to this person, suddenly all of a sudden the CEO's just been kicked out. The board's got together, but it's just way better. There's a guy called Edward de Bono, I think he's a British philosopher guy, and he's got this book called The Six Thinking Hats Method. And so with boards or groups, it's like we sit down, we'll have like the blue hat on, so we're all thinking about new ideas. Then we put like the green hat on, so like why are these ideas so good? We're all talking about it. Then we put the red hat on. Anyway, suddenly you can imagine, fast forward a little bit of time, and you've all collectively decided that this is the best way forward. And so no one's feeling hard done by. No one, we all collectively move forward. That's a really good spot to get to.
Yeah, for sure. I think the element there that you're talking about is time, the investment of time to get to a point where we collectively agree with the vision going forward. And oftentimes there isn't that time invested, because a business needs to scale quickly, it needs to deliver outcome, it needs to generate revenue, et cetera, et cetera. So that kind of almost baking in that time to do that kind of working group, that session, and all agree isn't afforded enough time. So then we're left with the CEO's vision, and everybody needs to be bought into the CEO's vision. And that's not so much collaboration, more cooperation, right? It's kind of everybody agreeing to the tasks that deliver on that end goal. And that is definitively different from collaboration.
Yeah. You want to be, what's my quote? It's not my quote, but you want to be a part of something, not a participant in something.
Yeah.
If you feel like you've had some input into it, then you're going to feel even more invested.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is a good spot. I want to cover a few polls.
Yeah. Let's go for it.
These are our like some of our best performing polls.
Nice.
This year, which I thought would be quite cool. And just like we can just talk through them. So our first one is like your best performing employee lies on their resume or CV. So I had a client, I think it was like a year and a half in, it's a sales role. Their best performing salesperson, it turned out, didn't actually have a degree. And they put the degree on their CV, and they found out the team knows, and the manager's like Lewis, what do I do? Now I'm going to give you the poll stats. Just to help you think about an answer to that. So interestingly, 63% of people said let them stay. The comments generally, they'd focused on like, did the job really need a degree? So they were kind of justifying why the person lied. They'd missed out on some jobs. Did they really need a degree? 19% of people said fire them.
Ouch.
My view, if I can share my view, was once someone has lied, it's a very hard place to get back from. The team knows if you keep them, I mean, what message does that send to the team? What else have they lied about? So the fact that the degree thing, I think, is a separate conversation. Some jobs require degrees, some not. That's a whole different debate. When you're leading a team and one of your guys has lied, and everyone knows about it, it's a lose-lose scenario for you, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there's a question of integrity there, right? And I would always want to know and understand why that individual felt compelled to do that. So it's kind of case by case and situational, right? And to your point, if this individual had been really, really struggling to secure a job opportunity, and the degree wasn't really something that was needed, but they thought it might sort of bump them further out of the pile, then again, there is a question of integrity there. And I think it'd be really difficult for me to say definitively whether I'd sit in the I'd fire them or I'd keep them camp. But to your point, trust is key to growing and building and fostering the dynamic within any team. And everybody needs, it's not just me having to trust them, the team needs to be able to trust them. And I think that's the piece that would then, interestingly, require the team's input.
Yeah. Interesting. You're in the other please comment section. But it's a hard one. It's
difficult, man. I generally wouldn't go default fire them.
You would
because
not.
It's never that simplistic or linear.
No, it's true. It's a real difficult one.
Love that.
Another one, really interesting one was, this is like career gaps. So the kind of the thought of this career gap. So, like so much of recruiting subjective, right? Like, so job hopper, what's a job hopper? Every 6 months, every year, every 2 years, every 3 years, who knows? The person in question had 4 to 5 jobs in 5 to 7 years. So they'd moved every year and a half, right? The question was, they said bad bosses, toxic culture is not the right fit. We've also had COVID, like a lot of people have been made redundant. We also this year, if we look at the TA population, recruiters, a lot of people have been out for a while. There are a lot of TA and folks and recruiters that have done a year, got made redundant, joined again, not their fault. So the question simply was, would you hire someone like this? And the options were absolutely, red flag, no way, or other comment below. So just over half, 58% said they would hire them. 30% said no way.
What's your take?
Context.
Yeah.
I think it's so important. You're not hiring a piece of paper. You're hiring an individual.
Totally.
And so for me, you might miss out on incredible talent from your own biases.
Yeah.
So for me, there's also context. Imagine you've had 500 applications for a job and you're trying to go through them. You have to do your selection criteria. But for me, there's a story behind it. Now, if I sit down with them and I want to hear their story, okay, and then, hey, if it's like, hey, do you know what? Someone offered me a new job for more money, I moved. Someone offered me a job for more money, I moved. Then I'd be a little bit cautious, but I want to hear the story.
Yeah.
And I want to hear about, because for me, it's not just, it's the other stuff. Like I call it and again, it's not my quote, but I want to hire people that with batteries included, i.e. it's a great on that, right? Batteries included for me, hiring for my own firm is like A+ human, loves recruiting, an open mindset, want to continue trying new things, developing, whether it's trying the transcription app or a bit of AI or whatever, but just open to developing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you can't tell that from a piece of paper.
Definitely. I would start at that point where clearly your kind of initial screening process is not asking the right questions if you're deciding whether to bring somebody forward based on the duration of the roles they're in. And because surely you should be thinking about the kind of skills, experience and knowledge that they may have collated over that 5-year period, and collectively does that offer a compelling application? These kind of urban myths around kind of job hopping and all that sort of thing, man. We're in the space now where the portfolio career is the standard. It's the new norm. 4 generations in the workforce, right? It's going to be a standard. If you're a leader still hanging on to, they job hopped around a little bit, you're focusing on the wrong things.
But I reckon 90% of people are still are like that.
Yeah, for sure. That's why we've still got the urban myths of I need to see at least 3 CVs before I can make a hire, blah, blah, blah. But, these things are perpetuated year on year. But they don't seem to go away. They're almost like the pillars of how people understand recruitment. You're just like, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any logical sense.
No, you're right. But we're going to...
We're just going to smash them up. That's what we're going to have to do.
I don't think it's changing in 2024. These things, you're right.
Agree.
You're right. Like job hopper, 3 CVs, whatever.
But again, immediately we jump to this kind of negative assumption that because somebody's moved between jobs, there must be a reason why. They're clearly either not good at their job, or there's something they've done wrong, or they're motivated by money. Why do we immediately default to the negative?
Yeah, you're right.
What if they did an amazing job over a 12-month period, collated loads of experience, and were like, you know what, the natural next step for me is this second role, or I've got a 5-year plan, and these 5 jobs were all part of my 5-year plan. I'd be super impressed with that. But you wouldn't even get to have that conversation if you just went, well, 12 months here, 18 months there, whatever.
Yeah, no, so right. So right. I think it's hard for people when they're hiring, if they're certainly like they've grown up in a corporate career and they've gone through this ladder and they've stayed a bunch of time, and like mentally it's quite hard to hire someone like that. I think like that's my excuse for it, because a lot of recruiting is also to the negative point. It's like they don't want to take the risk, or they don't want to make a bad hire. You always see this hiring for pedigree, or they're hiring for a tech firm and they've come from a well-known tech brand. Oh, they're great, that must be good. Versus like, so who's that startup? Never heard of them. And I think mentally it's quite hard for people.
Yeah, I mean, you might be in danger of projecting your own unconscious bias onto a hiring process, and this is why kind of really effective hiring managers, people are hiring, put a lot of time and investment in continuously learning and understanding how best to kind of make the decisions and identify talent. It's not just something you do periodically to build out a team. You have to keep working on that. It's your responsibility to.
Yeah, I agree. Let's see. I've got two great ones here. Now, The AI one's interesting.
Yeah, okay.
And so a lot of folks now use AI to apply for jobs, write their CVs, and write their cover letters.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, LinkedIn, I don't know if this is AI, but anyway, LinkedIn has an auto apply, as most people know.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on people using AI to write their CVs and write their cover sheets? And also for context, you can basically put the job description into ChatGPT and you can say, write me a bespoke cover letter.
Yep. Then
you get the bespoke cover letter, then you get an interview, you put the job description in and say, hey, predict what questions they're going to ask, give me the model answers, whatever. The question was, how do you feel about candidates using AI to apply for and prepare for interviews? 58% said concerned about authenticity. 37% said very impressed. So I know what your view is probably going to be, but what do you think about it?
Yeah, it's authenticity. Because ultimately you can utilize these AI tools to write your cover letter, write your CV. You can even, to be fair, game the application process by, kind of populating answers generated by ChatGPT into the whichever platform. But at the point where you meet a human being in the process, which you invariably will, if what they've read doesn't marry up to the authentic individual that they're interviewing in front of them, they're going to know, right?
You'll know, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the process will ultimately define whether that's real or not. So if it's a time efficiency thing and you're applying for lots of jobs, okay, fine. If you want to use AI tools, you go for it. But be mindful that it has to be your authentic voice, because you will be sitting in front of somebody at some point being asked questions, and they're going to have an expectation already of who you are based on what they've read already.
Yeah, it's true. The other side to the coin for that is you've got to do all you can to get yourself in front of a human. And so some of the conversations, like, no one responds to my job application on LinkedIn. I send, people send applications, they don't get hit, they don't get anything. They want to get through the door.
Completely understand, man. Completely understand, because sometimes it does feel like a volumes game when you're an individual looking for a job, and it's, that's a lot of work, right? I mean, and to your point, you do want to get in front of a human being. Yeah. But when you have that opportunity, that what they've read, what they've seen from you needs to kind of align with the person that they're meeting. And I know that, the job market's tough, right? So you got to do what you got to do. But that authenticity is the key thing.
Yeah.
Always.
So if you're using it, at least revise it before you go in for an interview. But just edit, make it your own.
I mean, look, you think about it, like my mum's dyslexic. So when she was applying for jobs, something like ChatGPT would be great for her because it helps her. It's a supportive, it's an enabler to allow her, my nephew's, kind of dyspraxic. So for him, concentrating on a text-based application can be really, it's challenging. And these things can enable him to be able to apply for jobs, which is great. And it's fine, as long as there's almost a disclaimer with that. So there's positives to that as well.
Yeah. Love that. Last one.
Yeah.
Before we look ahead, and I like this, and this was this year. So So the Goldman Sachs CEO, it's David Solomon, I think, isn't it? David Solomon.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
David
yeah,
Solomon.
yeah, this guy.
So Goldman's had a bad. I mean, a lot of banks had a bad year, right? So in his spare time, he's a DJ, and so he's the Goldman Sachs CEO by day, and he's been DJing. I mean, I don't know, not every single weekend, but he's been DJing, on the side.
Yeah.
And I think he just recently retired as a DJ, just to give the full context. But the story, I think, was early on this year. I remember being in New York at the time, and the Goldman's released bad results, and then the newspaper articles were like, well, he shouldn't be DJing. He should be focusing on running Goldman Sachs. So the question is, my question was, public company CEOs pursuing passions outside of the day job. So absolutely no way, or it depends. 88% of people said absolutely. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, to your point, there's context here, right? There's context in so much as Mr. Solomon resided over a bank that, yes, they did suffer in terms of the financial results. They were down to, I think, 2.1 billion from 3.1 the previous quarter. So tough times for them, right? Got to feel some sympathy there. And then I think in terms of him specifically, anybody pursuing a kind of a hobby, wherever you are in the business, if that's your hobby and that's something that genuinely you're passionate about, I don't think you should be made to give that up. I think my understanding from him specifically was that the board were worried about the press attention that might bring based on his position. So I think there was a kind of gentle encouragement for him to retire. Yeah.
For me, I think we talked again. This is a big theme with people we've been talking about for years, like integrating your work in your life. And I think for me, whatever level you're at, it's so important to do things outside of work. Like looking after yourself, exercise, sleep, good nutrition. Whether it's wanting to be DJing on Saturday night to just decompress and unplug and things like that. So for me, I think it's so important to have a good life. Like there's lots to do and lots of different things. I think with him specifically, I suspect perhaps the thing was the DJing, because when you think about like raves and festivals and parties, there's always like a drink, kind of like almost a misbehavior, like kind of like vibe to it, right? And so maybe it was the perception that should a Goldman Sachs CEO be at a party where people are behaving badly or whatever, maybe there was that kind of
maybe.
Would they have cared if who does golf every weekend?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, fitted the typical perhaps stereotype, as it were.
Yeah, exactly. Like go play golf for 4 hours. Is that any better or worse than doing an hour set as a DJ? I mean, actually, I don't know about you, but I mean, going and having a little dance is incredible. Just like it's exercise.
But I mean, if they were thinking about kind of perhaps the press attention around that, they probably shouldn't have allowed him to go on record and saying that Goldman's kind of getting everybody their policy or their return to work policy, or the fact that they wanted everybody back in the office was what did he say? It was like an aberration or something like that. He was just like, basically, I want everybody back in the office.
Yeah. And so they're back in now 4 or 5 days.
Exactly. Yeah. So if they were thinking about kind of negative press attention, they might have maybe thought more about that than his kind of DJing on the side hustle, as it were.
That's true. There was another interesting Goldman's thing, not picking on Goldman's. I think it was in New York, they had free coffee. I think there was a Starbucks or something there, and then they withdrew the free coffee. So I mean, coffee in America, in New York, and it's like $4 or $5 or something for a small. You can never get a small; it's extra large or whatever. Yeah. But they took it away, and the kind of the outcry of like, hold on a sec, and it's not the money, because I'm sure people can afford a coffee, but it's just interesting that once you give someone something to people, the taking away,
definitely,
is difficult.
Yeah. But like you said, this is not about kind of beating up Goldman Sachs, but it is. No. I think there is genuinely, if somebody wants to pursue something that they're super passionate about, they should feel at liberty to do that and have the choice to do that in their own personal time.
Definitely.
You know what I mean?
I'd encourage. Yeah, high five. I mean, it's important to do that. Looking ahead,
yay, 2024.
2024. Now, I mean, this is like, I think, near on impossible. I mean, for me anyway. I mean, look at what's happened this year. look what's happened. I mean, there's so many things going on in the world. But is there any, I mean, maybe to start with, are you optimistic about next year in terms of like work, jobs, recruiting, and so forth? Or
I think reading the kind of economic forecasts for 2024, we have reasons to be positive. Small increments in, kind of like profitability, the economy, that sort of thing. I think, there's definitely reasons to be cheerful and positive. 100%.
good. Job market?
Again, we'll see, I think, an increase in activity. We won't see like the kind of big boom that we had when we came out of kind of COVID, post-pandemic, but we'll see a steady kind of increase in activity. Okay. And I think that the kind of investment landscape will kind of stabilize a little bit more. We'll see where the investment and the money is really being kind of dispersed, as it were. The one thing I will predict for 2024 is leadership will continue to be, and the styles of leadership will continue to be incredibly important. With 4 generations in the workforce, you've really got to work on your leadership to be able to kind of grow a company and lead a team and everything along those lines.
1,000%. And just to even reiterate your point, I wasn't gonna go with this poll, but let me show you. McKinsey did a study it was a survey about 6 months ago now, and the question was, what's the biggest cause of stress in your job? This is McKinsey. 75% of employees said that their boss is the most stressful part of their work day.
There you go.
The poll was, do 75% of bosses know that? Most people said no way. 75% of people. But no, to your point, it's super important. It's difficult. Leading like remote teams is tough. The whole thing. So
yeah, and then AI as well. I think I come back to that piece around kind of including your team, your employees, the individuals in your business in the conversation around what does kind of artificial intelligence mean for their role. What do they think it means? Can they see the opportunities to utilize it where it's not being utilized? And then how does that fit into the wider context of the business? And what does that mean for them in terms of training, upskilling, and the future of their role and how that will change? And those conversations need to start now. They can't be defined by the speed of the development of the technology. It needs to almost be in parallel.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's going to be interesting to see at the point in future, and I don't think it's going to be 2024, whether AI will be leading companies, leading countries. I mean, they could do a better job than some people leading countries right now. But it'd be interesting, right? Just even writing policy and just little things that humans struggle with or argue about. Or just it's going to be interesting to see if AI kind of starts to be involved in leading companies and kind of stuff.
Wow. Okay.
You're
taking a leap there. Yeah. I mean, I
think it's even already started.
Yeah. I would encourage anybody listening to read the OpenAI blogs, because actually they're a good source of kind of information, and it kind of, I think it will help shape people's thinking and to a degree demystify some of the perhaps the kind of rumor mill that goes with that. It's a good starting point, and obviously you can kind of offshoot into different sources. But again, there is that driver around transparency. If you don't know what's going on, you're going to make decisions based on the information you have. And if you feel like your business is gearing up to automate and replace part of the role you currently do, and you don't think that there's anything else for you, there's no offer of training, upskilling, anything along those lines, you're going to make a decision based on that.
Yeah, I completely agree.
And you reduce fear by including people in the conversation, and you demystify these things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? AI isn't as, I think almost sometimes AI isn't as developed as people perceive or think it is based on the kind of newsreels.
True. My thing for 2024, just as advice for people, as in me included, is update your worldview. There's like, to your point, there's so many things going on, whether it's AI, electric cars. Apparently I got this from The Economist, there's 70 elections next year, country elections.
Yeah.
The world is like changing incredibly.
Yep.
So, jump on YouTube, I don't know, watch people that you completely disagree with, go on the AI blogs. I mean, I think just spend a little bit of your time just updating what you think about the world and all of that.
100%, man. 100%. I mean, we're in pre-election mode now, right? In the UK, we're in pre-election mode. If you're not aware of that, you should be. And that will have, you need to be aware of the Tory government's policies on kind of employment, the labour market. You need to be aware of the Labour's. You need to be aware of that kind of political landscape and what a result, whether another Tory win or a Labour win or kind of hung parliament, whatever it is, you need to be aware of what that means for you in your role. And certainly within talent acquisition and recruitment, that's what I can talk to. So yeah, I completely agree with you. I think it's really important to have that kind of updated worldview, local and global.
Global, 100%. For our roles, it's important. It influences everything. Yeah. We talk about hiring. Like some things that will affect hiring next year are certain, I don't know, global events that we're not even sure who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And you need to be aware of everything that's going on so you can take a view.
Exactly.
All of these kind of stuff.
Those sort of things will affect the investment landscape as well. Policies that, say if Labour drive more green policies that have been stalled under the Tory government, that may, affect where money is being invested in the UK in the start-up and scale-up community. So you need to be aware of that as a talent acquisition recruitment professional, 100%.
Yeah. It's also like a little bit, sometimes all of this stuff's a little taboo, right? Politics, this, that. But, I think just dive in, educate yourself, speak to people,
exactly.
like go and understand. And it's just amazing. Like this growth mindset thing, like you just need to know what's going on.
Definitely. You don't have to have an opinion on it. Just be aware.
Yeah. So that's one thing that I think one should do. My view on just the 2024 is I'm an eternal optimist anyway.
Yeah.
So, I can't help but feel optimistic for the future. But I think, certainly like in terms of real life conversations I've been having with clients, more and more have been saying that they're going to be hiring more in 2024. And even in like, say, financial services and technology, which are the two big sectors that like kind of shut down this year, are starting slowly to build. So I don't think 2024 is going to be like 21 and 22, because that was like, like just like the best time for recruiting. Just so much stuff. But I think we're gradually building. I think, for me, it's focusing on the things you can control, all this learning stuff we're talking about, just doing your job in the right way, implementing new stuff. I think relationships are huge. So for recruiters, TA professionals, stuff like that, just your ability to build long-term relationships and have a long-term view on stuff really pays back. And if you're in a consultancy and this is the year where you found out if you'd built good relationships or not, because it's not been dead, it's just been less recruiting.
Yep.
And if you've been getting the searches from the your best clients or whatever, or have actually they've been going to someone else, because you've been, I don't know, too transactional or too aggressive or too salesy or whatever it might be. So I think it's a good moment to really get your house in order.
Definitely. And it comes back to your point around having a worldview, right? Just talking to them about talent acquisition is not going to be enough. You need to understand the context with which that business is navigating, the kind of economic environment that business is navigating, because that will invariably influence the teams that they're building or not building, as it were. You know what I mean? So and you are the eternal optimist, man. You are one at full energy.
You got to be. I mean, because I learned a lot of all this other stuff is actually like it's in people's mind. It's like external events affect people's view on whether they should be investing in new technology or people. Or hold on a second, like let's wait and see. So a lot of it's self-perpetuating and stuff. But I think for me, running a company, you just you do the things you can, you be the best you can. And, things happen. Plus also in business, by the way, I mean, it's never always good and it's never always bad. You're going to have good years and bad years. And that's cool. You just have to kind of flow a little bit with it, It's not ever going to be like, oh my God, this year's better than last. And there's going to be moments where it's just like, wow, that was pretty tough.
Yeah. You got to be a bit elastic, right?
Yeah.
You can't be too rigid when it comes to kind of business. You got to be able to kind of expand and contract. But keep that kind of stability as well for the people that are with you on the journey.
Yeah. So, done.
Cool,
Glenn,
man.
thank you so much. I really
Thank
appreciate
you,
it as
Lewis.
always. And,
Pleasure, man.
We'll do it again next year.
It's our annual thing now, right?
Yeah, definitely. Be interested to see what happens. What's actually happened this year. So we'll, maybe we'll play this last bit back and then get stick the new bit in.
Sounds cool, man.
Done.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Please do not forget to subscribe in all the usual places: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you like to watch or listen to a podcast. Any comments or feedback, please drop us a DM. If you've got anything that you want us to discuss, again, feel free to get in touch. Have a wonderful day.